Hello and welcome back to another video. So, just a little disclaimer before I begin, this is a rant video. I'm going to be rambling on about how I absolutely hate the Steam update, which, came out 3 months ago. It's a little out of date, but whatever. So it's going to be a little bit long, and I'm going to have a lot of me talking into a mic all alone in my room. Fun. Alright, so just to begin, I'm going to be using the preset build, of course, that the devs have so graciously provided when they released this update. If you can even call it an update. I've actually already made a rant video on this update, but I unlisted it because I kind of tied it toward my RFA Fresh Spring, which is a real-life ship that's being restored right now. I don't think it would be really fair to, or respectful to, tie in a rant about a video game to that, but here we are. So to point out the biggest problem with the Steam components is, as of course you can see, they are massive. The small firebox is a 5x3x3. For whatever reason, there's huge chunks of metal or whatever material it is on the sides that does not really need to be there. You can see basically, you got the pipes here that go out. They only need really a 3x3 actual, space to actually make this work. And of course, the coal chute, or duct, whatever you want to call it, as well only needs a 3x3 space. This extra metal here is really unneeded and could just be replaced with regular blocks. Now of course this also creates other issues as well. If I want to put a firebox right next to this, as say right here, which I'll just show you in the editor. I'll get a firebox, the small one, and we'll place it down right there. Now let's say I want to connect these two so I can actually, use them without having to manually refuel everyone with coal. Wow, look at this little space right here. Can't do nothing with that. You wanna know why? Because we don't have 3x1 ducts to actually connect these two. Can't do it. Now if I grab an example of a boiler, this boiler I built was based on a diagram that I'll show later in the video. You can see the firebox is right here. Wow, look at it. Now this boiler is basically an average size of a marine boiler you'd find in a ship, or maybe on land, something like that. They don't really need to be all that big. This might need a couple more extra if you want to power a ship with it. But you can see the fire hole here is about a 3x3. Now that is about the size of an actual firebox, if not smaller. Or larger, I guess you could say. IRL, they would probably be a little bit smaller, maybe. Just barely, though, probably. Now, of course, a lot of that space is actually taken up by the combustion chamber, which runs along here. I'll pop up a diagram, either on the left side of the screen, or the whole screen, whatever I decide to do in the editing. Basically, it's a corrugated tube, has little baffles in it just to help with the flow of gases into the exhaust here. You can kind of picture it with the diagram I just showed. And of course the exhaust kind of moves up here, goes to the crown plate, and runs through the tubes, which then goes to the exhaust. The crown sheet's important because that is one of the other problems of the Steam components. The crown sheet, this part is the topmost piece of metal in the combustion chamber. Helps basically reinforce the boiler. In doing so, it also has to be cooled constantly. The water level in the boiler, of course, drops too much, or it falls below the crown sheet. The gases can overheat the plate and cause it to warp. Right above the sheet, of course, is a empty space in the boiler. This is where all the steam is going to pressurize and collect. If that plate weakens, it's going to send hot steam through the combustion chamber and out the fire hole, or out the exhaust. And of course all that hot steam is going to either burn everyone inside the boiler room, or it's going to basically turn this thing into a rocket and shoot out the roof or through a wall, whichever way it decides to go. Now think back to the cause of that outcome, low water. Well, guess what? Guess how a boiler explodes in Stormworks. It's not water level, I'll tell you. This is a little test thing I've been making, or made. It doesn't really work all that well. Probably not designed all that well either. But I'm just going to show you what happens when a steam boiler actually explodes. So of course in Stormworks, once it gets to a low water level, basically nothing happens. But if it gets too much pressure, it explodes. Now if you look back to that diagram I showed, in the top left corner are some safety valves. From a quick Google search, most medium-sized boilers operate from 15 to 80 bar. Larger boilers can go up to 80 to 200 bars, which obviously it depends on the design of the boiler, but they can reach some pretty high pressures. Meanwhile, Stormworks boilers explode at 10 bar, or whatever unit of measurement they use. From that little website I was looking at, this would basically mean every boiler in Stormworks is a low pressure boiler, running from like 5 to 10 bar. Which of course is not very much. Now of course maybe the pressure is just scaled down a little bit, and that's all well and good. But back to what I was saying, all boilers have some kind of pressure valve that keeps the steam at the safe pressure. Too much pressure, the valve opens, and you're good. Usually, unless a mechanical failure comes along, Stormworks boilers should not be exploding from high pressure. Now, of course they can, but as long as you build your relief valves correctly, the problem is solved. You don't have to worry about it. Boilers, in addition to a relief valve, should only explode due to damage, or, like I said, low water level. When the components were released, I was pissed. All over the Stormworks, I saw people's ways of combating an explosion. One of those ways was to actually cut off water into the boiler, because of course without water you get no steam. But as I said, without water, you run the risk of the crown plate weakening. Even then, a boiler explosion does nothing. No damage is done to the surrounding area. I'll even show that to you. Alright, so here's my little test bed. It's heating up all nice and well. Basically how my relief valve works is it goes up a pipe and then it either goes into the condenser or exhaust atmosphere. Once we get to 100 C, it should start turning the water into steam, of course. And it exploded. So for whatever reason my valve didn't go off, don't really know why, but it doesn't really matter. You see that it did explode. And what did it do? Absolutely nothing. No damage is done to the surrounding area. The turbine's not damaged, the fuel tank's not damaged, the firebox is not damaged at all. It pops and leaks some steam, and that's it. That's all you get. There's also no hissing sound effect for steam, of course, but I'll get into that later. Just a little chemistry lesson. We're gonna go move back to the devs example firebox, which should work a little bit better, of course. And their boiler is now running. Water is a very hard substance to heat. It stores a lot of energy before it can even begin to change its state. There's something called a temperature curve, I think it's called. Something like that. Basically, the temperature can rise, but then it'll stagnate. And once it stagnates, that's basically meaning that the substance that you're heating up is about to turn into a liquid or a gas, whatever state it's in. But in doing that, basically the temperature rises, it stays the same for a while until it actually begins to actually melt or turn into a gas, and then it raises again to the next temperature level. I'm pretty sure it's called temperature curve. I could be wrong on that. Chemistry class was like a year and a half ago. So of course, water is very hard to actually heat up. Once it gets to that curve, it's going to start storing energy. It's going to store a lot of it. That's why whenever you have something hot, you always want to cool it with water, because of course, water will absorb all of the energy. And of course, once it changes its state from a liquid to a gas, it can take even hours or even days to get a boiler up to the right temperature, depending on the size. These, of course, in Stormworks are very fast in the way they work. I don't know why this is already out of coal. Okay, we're putting back in fuel. Of course, it can take many days to get the boiler up to temperature, so it's going to be storing a lot of energy, a lot of heat, lots of everything. And of course, you also have the high pressure steam. Now imagine all of that energy basically stuck in a little tube like this, and now it's going to be released through a tiny crack or pinhole, whatever creates when you have overpressure or not enough water inside your boiler. It's going to explode, and it's going to explode with a lot of energy. I think there's a picture of a steam train that exploded. I think it was due to the water level as well. You'll see it's absolutely mangled. All the fire tubes are exposed. It's pretty bad. Pretty sure like both of the firemen or engineers died. But anyway, essentially you have a bomb on your hand. And of course, in Stormworks, boilers do nothing. And this preset the devs have made. You can see there's absolutely no fluid, but it's still working. It hasn't exploded yet. Now, that's obviously a bug. I'd call it a bug, even though they might call it a feature. Who knows? In addition, you can only use fresh water to actually pump into the boiler. Salt water does not work. My question is, why do modular engines get scaling from salt water, but boilers do not? If you add in the mechanic of low water level explosions, you can also add in the ability to use salt water in emergency to supply the boiler with water, but of course, the level gets too low. That's really all I gotta say about that. Basically, boilers do not act like they are supposed to act. There's so many ways that you could actually add an explosion that can make it a little bit more interesting to actually get your design going. Of course, you can't really do that. But moving on from the more realistic complaints, playability. As I've mentioned, the fireboxes in this game are huge and they're hard to get in line up on a boiler's furnace hole. To get my RFA fresh spring ship working with the items, I had to put them on their sides and now have to manually shove coal in. For your information, fresh spring is an oil burner, and the lack of an oil burner makes decoration boilers useless because there's no way of getting fuel in them without having a 3x3 or larger duct going into the sides of the floor if you even have the space. Of course, fuel oil will fix all those problems, but it's not in the game, of course. And like I said in the beginning, there's no way to connect multiple fireboxes in line. A 3x1 duct would obviously fix that, or just add in heavy fuel oil. That would fix a lot of problems. And for balancing, of course, you can just make it a little bit more inefficient, less heat producing than coal, or its weight. Furthermore, for being a major update, nothing decoration nor useful was added in to complement the steam components. There's no steam whistles, steam valves, relief valves, steam pipes, which could just be a retextured 1x1 pipe, similar to the size and shape of a 1x1 rocket. Which I use rockets all the time for large pipes, because these are pretty small. No animated steam bogies for train foamers, not even a reciprocating engine. We already have modular engines, why could we not have a modular steam engine? Or even just a special manifold we can connect to a modular engine to make it steam powered. It'd be pretty simple, just require a little bit of code tweaking. Maybe it's a little bit more complex, I don't know. I don't code all that often, or code well when I do. Just want to remind you all, this is a major update, and it let it in less than a weekly update. That's of course exaggeration, but still, it was not much. Alright, well, this is the end of the video. I'm in my fresh spring right now, just kind of messing around with the coal. I died. I don't like it. If I've said anything wrong, please do tell me in the comments, or maybe if you want to have a discussion about what I said. So if this video is pretty long, it's probably going to be like 8 minutes though, something like that. I don't know. I haven't looked at the time yet. But I just want to share my mind. I began work on my RFA fresh spring, as you can see. Kind of repainting, and it doesn't really have all the ballast correct yet. But I just started working on it again, and I was just reminded about how crap Steam is in this game. So, might as well share my mind about that. Anyway, if you'd like to see progress on that, I'm going to be posting in my Discord, which will be in the link below. Or you can even look at my M1A2 SEP-V2 Abrams. Going along swimmingly. It was pretty hard though. Link will be in the description. There's also a link to a request a feature I made about all of this. Please upload it so the devs can actually see it. And yeah, that's really all I gotta say. I'll see you in the next video I make, which will probably be something, I don't know. I don't know how to end this.